Good morning, YouTube. This is Brin, or, since I have to go to work today, this is actually Paul. It's a little bright and early in the up and atom, and, I just got up a few minutes ago and rolled out of bed and got dressed, but, yeah, so this is day 14, November 14th, of my 30 videos in 30 days project. The 30 days come from, or the 30 questions, sorry, come from the Miserable Muse at DeviantArt. So today's question is number 14, loaded with irony. What are some of your passing tips or things you do to pass? Well, I mean, to start with, it's amazing how little control over how you pass you actually have. Passing is something that's done to you. It's not really something that you do. About the only thing that I can do is be, rather as unambiguous as possible in my presentation. But people are going to make their decisions about, what my gender is and how much I look like a cis person, which is really what, how close I come to meeting cis expectations, which is really what passing is all about, is trying to meet some ill-defined arbitrary set of standards that each person carries differently. I can pass with one person as whichever gender I'm presenting, and then get misgendered by the very next person that I see without changing anything, and actually it's funny because sometimes I will see my gender change in someone else's face. If I'm presenting male but I'm getting read female, which does happen, as soon as I open my mouth, and my boy voice comes out, I can see people just automatically alter their initial impressions, and then it's sort of like, oh, well, I guess he's just a, girly man or something. I don't know what they say, but passing's a really sticky situation. Like, it's a really sticky subject. Alright, I think I'm gonna have to tie this tie third time. No, I got it. It's a really, I don't have any passing tips. I don't like the idea of passing tips because it implies that there's some universal standard that every trans person should be trying to meet, and the people who really always get the crap for it are trans women, because we're overcoming generally we're overcoming a puberty's worth of testosterone effects, so our bone structure is different than most cis women's bone structures, so that's one of the things we have to overcome. But the thing is, there's a variance. Like, humanity is comprised of variance. There is a particular range of traits that can be, the ways that traits can be expressed. For example, brow ridge. Okay, let's go with brow ridge. So, the average expectation is that men will have a more pronounced brow ridge than women will. Okay, but it's not like there's a huge spectrum, and then on this half of it is men, and on this half of it is women. Or traits expected therein. There's two. There's the normal expectation of trait expression of men, and then there's the normal expectation of trait expression of women, and they're just shifted a little bit from each other. The male traits are over here, and the women's traits are over here. So the extreme on the women's side is, not so very far from the extreme on the men's side. I'll bet if you really look, if you just keep your eyes on the street, open on the street, there's some woman with a brow ridge that you'll run into, or an Adam's apple, that, some cis woman, presumably. Because not every woman who has an Adam's apple or a brow ridge is a trans woman. It's normal for that to show up sometimes. I used to work with a guy in one of my old jobs who had no brow ridge. I mean, he just had this sort of perfectly round, smooth forehead, and of course I notice it because I'm trans. So I look for these kinds of traits. I think we pay a lot more attention to individual traits on people than cis folk do. I think that's just a factor of the spotlight effect. So it's this idea that because you're focused on you, you feel like everyone's focus is on you, but everyone's focus is actually on them. So and the other thing about passing is everyone's got a different set of traits, that they need to figure out what to do with. So in my case, I have an Adam's apple and pretty pronounced brow ridge, at least I think so, and I tend to be passed more often than not. But I've also got some other rather, androgynous features, I guess. So, I think maybe my features confuse people's gender sense enough that they just fall on whichever side I'm wearing clothes for, That's not the case for everybody. Some people are, some trans men are tiny and elfin, and that's hard for a guy. And it's hard to pass as a, it's hard to automatically and easily be passed as a guy, if you've got a very tiny frame. At the same time, I'm only 5'6" or so, and, not at all, muscular, and I pass as a guy all the time. So, it's, there's a, pretty huge range. The other thing too is those ranges, those standards, those expectations, those are all built off of, white beauty standards. Like, so, people of color, like, the expectation levels are a little different. But, like, nobody meets those beauty standards that, and trans women, we're looking at the same magazines that cis women are, and they've got one particular beauty standard that they're all trying to adhere to, and they will manipulate the photograph, the lighting, the model into getting whatever shape that they're looking for. And you know what? It's not really a shape most people fit into. So try to let go of those standards. And some women are tall and broad and, have a harder time finding clothes that fit them. And, initially have to fight these feelings of being a linebacker in a dress. But the fact is, my daughter's teacher last year is tall, broad-shouldered, cis woman, and she's just on a different end of the spectrum, So I don't know. I'm not really going to give passing tips because I don't have any. Yeah, so I will see you back here tomorrow. Send me messages, leave comments. Find me on Tumblr, brinconvenient.tumblr.com. Also on Twitter. And join us at the forums at bygender.net/forum. Bye, guys.